Alright, hello guys, how's it going? In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at this ongoing, and really it's going to last so long that it's still upcoming, a lot of it, this upcoming major winter storm. We're going to see tons of ice, tons of snow, and just a lot of impacts in general that we have to go over. Anyways, before we get into this video, be sure to smash that like button, leave a comment down below, and subscribe for more weather-related content. For today's comment of the day, I want to know, what do you think is the maximum amount of snowfall we see with this snowstorm is? Let me know in the comments down below, and I'll be picking one of those for tomorrow's video. Let's get straight into this video, and obviously we have straight up just a lot of energy going on right about here. And this is already our major winter storm that's already ongoing. Let's just zoom into some other regions that do have some precipitation going on. We do see some snow showers up here, kind of very spotty. We do see there is an area here that is going to move down into kind of the greater Seattle region, and overall, I guess, just most of western Washington there. Those are actually racing in quickly. You can see them at the very end here, just racing in. So there will be some rainfall potentially around. Now as we look at the Rockies, we can see there is some back-end energy. Here you could literally tell where all this is headed. It's headed north, which means probably there's some warmer air generally in these regions here. We do see a lot of it as snowfall in these regions, and we're going to be watching for accumulating snowfall, especially for these regions where we're seeing more widespread snowfall take place. Let's zoom back out, because something I found interesting is you can literally tell where the jet stream is just by looking at the radar. You can tell it's something like this, because we see here these storms are headed south, just like that, and then here these storms are headed kind of towards the east, and then here they're heading straight north. So you put that together just like this, and obviously we have some sort of serious trough going on right there. That's what that tells me. And where the trough is where the cold air is. So in all of these regions, we have very cold air, and that's what's allowing for the snowfall to take place on the northern end of the storm that is racing along that jet stream. Now we're seeing heavy snowfall from multiple different regions. We're seeing this area here from Colorado up through Oklahoma, Missouri, Kansas here, obviously already. So we're seeing this take place. And then also once we head up north, we can see there's also an area here with some very heavy snowfall. The precipitation typing does turn off, but we do see Missouri, Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, Michigan there, all seeing that snowfall take place. Now, when we take a zoomed out look, you can tell there's a lot more precipitation heading into this storm. This is just garnering more precipitation and more energy, I would say. And what's interesting, what's going to happen is this is going to really move up into Canada and move out, and then we're going to see another low pressure system reform. We're going to kind of go back to back with it. We're going to see another storm system develop and basically bring snowfall to the same exact regions. Now, if we take a closer look, we can see that there is, according to this radar, some freezing rain being picked up kind of in between the rain and snow. And this was very much so expected. We've talked about how this should be an ice storm. And I'm expecting that probably there's even more of this freezing rain coming down than even what this is indicating. Sometimes this radar can be very off with the precipitation type, and I do believe there's more widespread freezing rain taking place than this, just according to what was really expected with this storm. Now, I would not be surprised if there is flooding anywhere in this region, really, where there's a lot of that precipitation moving up from the Gulf. So we're especially going to be watching kind of this corridor in here for flooding, as back-to-back rain showers hit. You know, over time, you get inches and inches of rainfall that way. And if that does take place, I would not be surprised to see potentially some flooding take place for some spots, like I mentioned. So what we're going to do is we're going to move on, and we're going to take a look at some model guidance for not only this portion of the storm, but the second portion of the storm, and also another southeast and east coast snowstorm potentially. We're going to have to talk about that as well. Alright, so here we are taking a look at the modeled guidance, and you can see we're taking a look at right now. We obviously have this storminess in here, just like what's happening, you know, in real life actually. So let's just go ahead and keep going with this, and this is when something interesting happens. We see this one begin to move out. This is by about this afternoon, this early evening, I would say 3 or 4 p.m. or so. We're seeing a lot of energy kind of transfer back into this region. So let me play this out for you. I move it back, and there's not a lot going on, but we watch it, and then we start to see more and more energy really take over in this region. Again, this is about right now, and this is by this afternoon. So we can already see more snowfall taking place right here, more rainfall down here for Texas, and even more freezing rain in between if we look at those pink regions. So that storm eventually kind of moves out and becomes the less dominant feature here, I would say. And then we see this one to the south and to the west really take over. We see more and more freezing rain take over as well, more snowfall in the northern end. This is going to be a messy storm. Again, I mentioned that there was a lot of storms like this last year, late in the winter. I would say February and March or so. I think mid-February is when we started seeing these ones really head in. And it's really interesting to see, again, this year, we're seeing in February, late in the winter, another year where storms like this are popping up. It's interesting how that happens. Clearly, we're caught in some sort of cycle because this is, unusual to have back-to-back years just like this, but it's not unusual to have back-to-back years that are similar. So, with that being said, it's not too surprising, but it is very interesting to say the least. Now, by about 8 p.m. on Thursday, we could see snowfall all the way from Texas through the Ohio Valley into the Northeast, all the way to the northern tip of Maine. So from Texas to Maine, we're seeing snowfall. And from Texas all the way up to New York, we're seeing freezing rain. And from Texas all the way up to Maine, again, we're seeing rainfall. So this storm is just long. I mean, it's hard to put it any other way. It's just very, very long, the stretch of area that it's just impacting at this point. A lot of freezing rain. And honestly, that rain snow line does move further south over time. We're seeing that take place because what's happening is we do have this trough here, and it is moving further south. There's a cold front along this end, and that's where the precipitation is. A low pressure system is moving along that cold front, but really, there's also warm air battling it right here. It's almost like in a battle you can't see happening that's happening up in the sky, and the warm versus the cold, it's happening all the time, and that's what causes, all these storms and terrible weather, especially here in the United States, is those battles happening. Severe weather, snowstorms, cold fronts, all sorts of stuff like that is basically the result of these battles. So I guess that's a good analogy of a way of looking at it. And what we're seeing is the warm and the cold are meeting over these regions, and that's why you're seeing this terrible weather take place. But slowly but surely, we know the cold is going to win. So that's why the cold is pushing the warmth further south. Now, if it was heading further north over time, we would know that the warmth is actually winning that battle. So that's going to determine where it goes. But we see this actually head further and further south and further east over time. So you can tell the cold is winning that battle. And as we move even further, you could see it pushes out east, but it is moving further and further south and east over time, just like this. So we're watching that take place. And then eventually that cold fully sets into the east, actually. We get a bit of a trough like this. It's not as strong as some of the troughs we saw in January. I don't expect absolutely Arctic conditions to take over, but it will be moderately cold. It'll be colder than normal or colder than average, at least, I would say. Now, let's take a look at the total snowfall. Let me get this off screen. Okay, so if you're anywhere in the grays, it's a dusting, if anything. Blues, 2 to 6 inches of snowfall. Purples will be 6 to 10. Pinks will be 10 to 20. And then we even see in some of these pastels here, I'm circling where you can see some of them take place. And also here, we're seeing some of those very small regions. That's where we're getting to kind of 20 to 30 inches of snowfall for sure in some of those spots. Now, the good news is that we talked about yesterday how the European model and the American model kind of disagree. The good news is today we do actually have some good agreement, to say the least. I'll show you that in a minute. Now, in the east, you can tell 10 inches plus for these regions. I just zoomed in so you guys can see the amounts on screen. But it's a very large swath, seeing 10 to 15 to even 20 inches of snowfall. Arkansas, Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, even a bit of Massachusetts as well in there. So multiple states seeing those amounts of snowfall. Let's move back to the central United States where we can see that Oklahoma, Colorado, New Mexico, Texas, Kansas, Arkansas, Missouri, all these areas also have some of those 10-inch plus amounts taking place, or at least the 6 to 10-inch amounts taking place. So a very large snowstorm taking over multiple different regions, to say the least. Now, as far as freezing rain is concerned, We also expect a lot of this throughout these regions. The lighter amounts is going to be more of your, under half an inch of freezing rain, which already about a quarter to half an inch of freezing rain is already very considerable, I would say. We quickly move into the half inch to inch amounts here in some of these darker colors. But some of these darkest colors, we see some of these darkest colors in here, Kentucky. Well, I would say Arkansas, Oklahoma, Kentucky, Ohio, and maybe even Missouri as well. We see those darkest colors. Those darkest shades are going to be your inch to 2 inch amounts of freezing rain. And if anything like that takes place, we see the maximum down there on the bottom right is going to be 1.88 inches. If anything like that takes place, we will be looking at a major ice storm. Now let's move on to the GFS model. Well, let me put the snow back on screen so you can see how much it moves. You can tell it doesn't move that much. European model, GFS model. There's more amount here on the GFS model. We see higher amounts, but generally the location is the same, which is good. You can deal with a difference between 15 and 20 inches of snowfall, but if the location is different, then you're looking at a difference of 0 inches to 20 inches, which is very difficult position to be at, especially very close to a snowstorm. So it's always hard when we're in that type of circumstance, and I'm talking to you guys, and I'm like, yeah, you can really see nothing to 20 inches of snowfall. I like the fact that the models agree, and that makes me feel more confident in general in pretty much everything to do with the snowstorm. Now, these larger amounts, we're just going to zoom into the east because this is the only area where we see larger amounts here on this model. We have 20 inches plus for this region, Missouri and through even Illinois. Well, Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, Ohio potentially. And then we also see these 20-inch amounts take place for New York, all the way through Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine as well. So this model indicates very, very large amounts. And you can see that second southeast snowstorm potential showing up here on this model. Another snowstorm for these regions. We'll take a look in a second, but here's the freezing rain total. We have a little bit less here. That's the good news. We have about maybe, these are the areas where we're about half an inch in there. And then here is where we're at maybe an inch to an inch and a half. But the European model kept us closer to, almost an inch and a half to about 2 inches range. We don't see quite that large of amounts on this GFS model, which is very, very good news, obviously. So let's backtrack a little bit. Let's take a look at this secondary southeast snowstorm the GFS model comes up with. We see it linger behind, and what we're going to see happen is it kind of moves up just like this. So let's move this on. Yeah, so we do see some snowfall here. This is how they all start. The GFS model usually is a little too far south with these pieces of energy here in the southeast. So we'll see if it trends north. It might trend away to nothing. But it is interesting that this area has had multiple snowstorms so far this winter, and the GFS is showing yet another snowstorm take place for the Carolinas and potentially Virginia as well. Maybe even Georgia and Tennessee also. And we've seen multiple snowstorms like this, like I mentioned, for these regions. And pretty much every time a model has shown this, especially in this range, is only hours 100, which is kind of the medium to short range, actually. It's kind of panned out. So I am watching this. I will pay attention to this. And I feel like there's a decent chance this could take place. So you heard it here first, folks. There might be another southeast snowstorm. Anyway, for today's confidence tab, we have moved up to a 5 out of 6. I'm happy to announce that. Finally, I feel pretty confident in a snowstorm. The models actually came together and became more confident, not less confident as we got closer to it. So I feel good. Hopefully I don't, this doesn't come back to bite me, and tomorrow all the models completely disagree. Hopefully that's not the case, but we will be obviously going back over it tomorrow. For today's comment of the day, I asked you guys, which state do you think will see the worst impacts from this storm? And James Marr said, I think Missouri will be the most impacted by this storm with the combination of rain, freezing rain, sleet, and snow. Missouri really will see all the impacts. I would say Missouri or Kentucky would have been my guess. Missouri is seeing so much of that freezing rain on the southern end and so much of that snowfall on the northern end. It is crazy how they're going to see so many different impacts along that state. And I think the state being a little bit taller than Kentucky also makes it to where more impacts will be felt within the state from the southern end all the way to the northern end. So I do agree there in general. For today's patron highlight of the day, I want to thank you all for supporting the channel, but especially our platinum patrons: Bill Crates, James Wade, Dovey Nagel, Literally Pan, Mandy Birchfield, Patrick Strickland, Dave Scott, and Donna Carnes as well. I would also like to thank our diamond patrons: Bill Roberts, Marcus Connolly, Noah Harley, Michael Cadalessa, Catbite, Charles Stinnett, Bill Dallas, Gary's, and John Khaleesi also. I would also like to thank our channel members Catbite, Stephen Fan, and Jeremy Cox as well. Anyway guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Be sure to smash that like button, leave a comment down below, and subscribe for more weather-related content. I'll see you guys in the next video.